It is Tuesday, October 4th, and we're just hours away from the very first and only vice presidential debate.
Indiana Governor Mike Pence and Virginia Senator Tim Kaine squaring off at Longwood University in Farmville, Virginia. Good morning to you. You were watching Fox and Friends First just a little bit earlier this morning. I'm Heather Childers.
Bright and early. And I'm Clayton Morris. The vice presidential candidates taking different approaches to getting ready for tonight's face-off. On the eve of the debate, Tim Kaine quietly prepared at his Virginia home, while Mike Pence gave a little preview of what's to come.
We're going to be talking about the visions and the choice the American people face at the top of the ticket. I kind of hope we get to talk about our records as well. While Tim Kaine was governor of Virginia, unemployment doubled. And while I've been governor of the state of Indiana, we've cut employment in half.
We have live Fox News team coverage for you this morning.
Yeah, let's begin with Peter Ducey, who is live in Farmville, Virginia. He's the only one awake in Farmville. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning.
Good morning, Clayton and Heather. Mike Pence and Tim Kaine are not expected to be asked a ton about their own resumes tonight. It really is expected to be all about the top of the ticket. And we are told that Indiana governor and Trump running mate Mike Pence has been doing some mock debates ahead of tonight with Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker as the Kaine stand-in, and that Pence has also been doing some video review of Kaine the way that an NFL quarterback would, watching old interviews and old debates that Kaine has done to pick up his tendencies. You add that all up, and a top Trump campaign official is predicting that we may see a new side of Mike Pence on stage tonight here in Farmville.
He has been doing mock debates with Governor Scott Walker, and he's been preparing with the senior.
To be a waste of time at this debate to talk too much about himself. Kaine wants to talk about the kind of president Hillary Clinton would be, and an aide described the Democratic VP's strategy to draw out Pence like this, quote, "Let's see if he is willing to defend Trump." The goal tonight is obviously to reach as many people who have not been paying attention to the campaign as possible, but Governor Pence, we're told, plans to roll out of here on a precisely planned swing state bus tour hitting Virginia, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and North Carolina, and by this time tomorrow we'll know if that bus tour is going to be a victory lap or if he's going to be doing some cleanup duty. Clayton and Heather.
Thanks, Peter. A feisty Mike Pence. I'd like to see what that looks like.
Now, that would be interesting. Yeah. Well, so what exactly can we expect tonight? Many analysts say that there will not be fireworks like the first presidential debate.
But Heidi Priesbala, senior political reporter for USA Today, says we will get more substance tonight.
I think they have to fulfill the traditional role that the vice presidential candidate plays, which is attack, 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 especially when you have two such wildly unpopular candidates at the top of the ticket. So I think that you'll see a lot of that. But at the same time, I'm personally, for anybody who's excited about policy or who wants to actually see what the clear policy distinctions are between these two candidates, this might be your opportunity. So tune in.
Well, despite neither candidate having a military background at the top of the ticket, both of the VP candidates are fathers with sons in the service.
My oldest son, a proud Marine, is deployed overseas for the second time.
My son is a United States Marine. He is
Hoorah.
We're very proud of him.
But to either have an edge on courting military voters. Here to weigh in is Fox News contributor and military veteran Pete Hegseth. Pete, great to see you this morning.
Good morning.
So we have a new Fox News poll out this morning. This is 2016 vote preference right now among veterans. And right now, Donald Trump with 47% as opposed to Clinton's 33%. But yesterday, Pete, of course, all the headlines, and you know going into tonight's debate, the questions about what Donald Trump said on stage yesterday and whether or not he made comments about PTSD, etc. Will that color tonight's debate? And what do you think how that will play tonight on stage?
It may color tonight's debate, but what he said was a reflection of the emphasis Donald Trump has put on vets and VA issues from the beginning. I mean, no presidential candidate has talked this much about veterans in the VA as Donald Trump. So in that sense, him and Mike Pence will have the ability to lay out how they would change what's happened at the VA, whereas Hillary Clinton has said the scandal's overstated, and Tim Kaine will have to defend that. So when you look at the polls of troops, they are overwhelmingly for Trump, and especially when you look at services like the Marine Corps and the Army, the sort of more ground pounder side, they even more so go for Trump. So he has an advantage. They're on national turf here. Mike Pence is well versed on these types of issues. They talked about him a lot. So I would anticipate he'll feel pretty comfortable in that realm.
And something else that's interesting, we can take a look at this poll. Active duty military members, we have once again Trump in the lead with 37.6%. But look right there, right behind him, 36.5%. Johnson way above Clinton. What do you make of that?
It's amazing. You know what this poll is a total rejection of Hillary Clinton. She barely cracks 20% in any of the services. I mean, the military remembers the 90s. They remember her treatment of the military. They remember Benghazi and the Iranian deal. They don't like Hillary Clinton. So they may not love Trump in every circumstance. He wins amongst most services. But there's Gary Johnson right there as kind of an alternative. You add Gary Johnson and Donald Trump together, it's 75% of the poll. So it's much more so a rejection of Hillary.
Oh, Pete, as a decorated veteran yourself, I mean, you've heard Donald Trump lambasting the Iraq War. Hillary Clinton, a supporter of the Iraq War. Gary Johnson says, no, we don't need foreign wars. He's really anti-war. What do you think that those numbers suggest about the current state of, mentality about fighting international wars right now?
Yeah, no, I do think there is some skepticism in our military of how and when our military is used. But it's much more so whether or not the military will be allowed to win. So there's frustration about the wars we fight, but then also about the way in which we conduct them. So I do think there's an energy and a willingness, especially if you look into the Marine Corps and the Army side, which are the ones usually pulling the triggers on the battlefield. Right. They're more in support of Trump and recognize that, hey, if we're going to fight these wars, if we're going to go in, let's go in to win. But it does reflect, no doubt, hesitancy that hey, we haven't gotten everything right over the last 15 years.
From fighting wars over in the Middle East to homeland security and keeping us safe here at home, how do you think that's impacting these numbers?
Oh, I think when you look here at home, I mean, the contrast is very clear. Donald Trump has talked about building a wall and securing the border. He's talked about hitting a pause on refugees. And that is hitting the sentiment, not just of voters across America, but definitely the military. We forget the military is a cross-section of our country. And so the anxieties they feel are even more acute because they see the threats that we could potentially face by that porous border. So I think it only bolsters Trump when you look at how our national security and homeland security mesh together right now.
Put on your political hat for a moment tonight, Pete. If you were advising Tim Kaine, his home state of Virginia, what advice would you give him, and what advice would you give Mike Pence tonight?
And in home state of Virginia, I mean, they're both going to talk a lot about the troops. They're both going to pour it on. I think Tim Kaine can create a little distance between himself. I mean, he can show that Hillary Clinton is going to be a thoughtful commander-in-chief by saying, hey, whatever it takes to defeat ISIS, including ground troops, there's been a little bit of a space between the two of them so far. And then I think Mike Pence can talk about how he was right about the surge. He supported the Iraq surge, that we should have finished the war in Iraq. And he may have voted for the war, but ultimately he and Donald Trump would have finished it properly. So I think, as always is the case, the Iraq war keeps coming up time and time again. And I think Mike Pence can make a cogent case that following it and winning it is important, whereas Tim Kaine is still defending, would we send troops or not? How would we send them? It's a tricky business. So I think that's where a lot of the debate will be.
All right, Pete Hegseth live for us this morning in Farmville, Virginia. Great to see you, Pete.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Donald Trump planning to take over Twitter during tonight's VP debate.
On the heels of another blistering speech about his taxes, the Republican nominee saying that he used federal law brilliantly.
Fox News chief national correspondent Ed Henry is live in D.C. with how the Clinton camp is firing back. Good morning, Ed.
Good morning, Clayton and Heather. It's interesting, maybe Donald Trump wants to spice up social media a little bit tonight during this debate. A lot of people wondering whether Mike Pence and Tim Kaine can keep up with the star power of the first Trump-Clinton debate. He is basically pushing this idea that they're going to have a hashtag Big League Truth for the so-called Big League Truth team, where they're going to be texting out at the Trump campaign over 2,000 supporters throughout the debate to try and highlight key moments for Mike Pence, get them to retweet video and really pump it up. But as you know, no matter what you do on social media, it all comes down oftentimes to what's actually said at those podiums, but also what's been happening out on the trail. Those tax returns, the issue of taxes for Donald Trump has been front and center. He is trying to put a positive spin on it, while Clinton on the trail is saying there's something darker at work here. Watch.
Hillary Clinton has never created a single job in her entire life. Hillary Clinton made her money as a corrupt public official breaking the law and putting her government office up for sale. And now she's running for president.
A lot of us wondered what he was hiding. Because you know, if it was something that would make him look good, he would put them right out there. There's a lot more to this story, and we're just slowly getting it into the public eye. So we know he stiffed people, didn't pay his bills. We know he took bankruptcy.
Now, Sunday in St. Louis, we'll get back to the main event, Clinton versus Trump, debate number 2. Obviously, all eyes will turn back to them in just a few days. Clayton and Heather.
All right.
See what kind of preparation they've been doing for the next one.
Watch social media tonight. It'll be fun on Twitter. Ed, great to see you this morning.
Great to see you. Good morning.
Well, the time now is 11 minutes after the top of the hour. And bracing for impact, a deadly hurricane on the move as Monster Matthew pounds the Caribbean with drenching rain, powerful wind gusts, and a dangerous storm surge. Janice Dean is tracking a brand new warning that was just issued for the U.S.
And the VP nominees making their case for their candidate.
For law and order to every city and every community in this nation.
So what do they need to say tonight to make the case for their running mates? Our political panel on deck in Farmville, Virginia. That's next. They're going to weigh in.
Hurricane Matthew gaining momentum overnight as Category 4 storm claims 3 lives in its deadly tear across the Caribbean.
The storm now bearing down on Haiti, dumping as many as 40 inches of rain on a region still reeling from that devastating earthquake you'll remember back in 2010.
And Matthew also making its way out of Jamaica this morning on a collision course with Cuba. That is where 700 American families were evacuated from the U.S. Naval Base at Guantanamo Bay and then rushed to safety in Florida.
And take a look at these images showing the deadly storm from outer space as
one of the strongest hurricanes we've had in the Atlantic Basin in a decade, and I'm worried that people are complacent, so you need to be watching your forecast, especially if you live along the East Coast. So Cat 4 still have hurricane warnings in effect for Haiti, the northeast side of the storm right now, moving over the Haiti peninsula, bringing the worst of the rain, the worst of the hurricane force winds, the worst of the storm surge. This could be catastrophic for them. Then moving over eastern Cuba, then into the Bahamas as a major hurricane maintaining its strength. This storm really has not wavered, and that's why it's so dangerous. Forecast rainfall, as you mentioned, 30 to 40 inches for this very, very vulnerable area of Haiti, then over eastern Cuba, then the Bahamas. Now look at this track. It has shifted significantly over the last 12 hours. So maintaining its Category 4 strength, eastern Cuba into the Bahamas, and then look at the cone now, moving over to the west. And that means Miami, you're in the cone, Daytona Beach, Charleston, Wilmington. If this continues its shift westward, we're going to be dealing with a very big problem for the East Coast as early as Thursday. So this is new. Florida, South Florida, all of the southeast coast up towards the mid-Atlantic, dealing with potentially a major hurricane, not really weakening over the next couple of days. And the tropical models are all coming to an agreement that the East Coast is going to feel the wrath of this storm starting as early as Wednesday night into Thursday and over the weekend. I can't stress it enough. You need to be paying very close attention to this storm. We will bring you the latest.
And don't be one of the people relying on that one little piece of spaghetti that's going off towards Janice.
That's right. Ignore. I'm going to probably take this off because this is what's happening.
Yeah. No, I can tell she's very serious, your tone.
This is one of the biggest storms we have covered, I'm afraid. Yes.
All right, Janice. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Well, the time now is 18 minutes after the top of the hour, and Kim Kardashian back in the States as brutal details emerge about her armed robbery. The question this morning, was it an inside job?
And they've been on the sidelines for months, but tonight it's their time to shine.
Donald Trump will rebuild our military, restore the arsenal of democracy, restore a strong relationship with allies.
I know this about Hillary Clinton. When the lights are bright like they are now, she brings the A+ game to the table.
Which vice presidential candidate has the best chance to sway the critical undecided voters? A fair and balanced debate live from Farmville, Virginia. That's next.
We're just
4 weeks away from Halloween. That's right. People pretending to be somebody else going door to door for handouts, or as that's also called, running for president.
Well, they've been stumping on the sidelines for months, but tonight they are in the spotlight, the VP candidates, in their first and only face-off to show the American people how they measure up against their rivals. So, what do the voters need to hear? Here to weigh in, Democratic strategist Chuck Rocha and managing editor of the Washington Free Beacon, Aaron McLean. Thank you so much. Nice hat, by the way, Chuck.
Thank you, Heather.
So let's start with what these two need to do. Chuck, I'll begin with you. We talked about this yesterday. The majority of people don't even know who they are, so they have to introduce themselves really to America.
You're welcome to Farmville, Virginia, or as I heard it called this weekend, the Thrilla in Vanilla. So you're not going to get a lot of spice with this. You're going to just try to hope not mess something up. That's their whole job here. Have you ever remembered the first opening act for whatever concert you've went to? These two guys' job today is to not do anything wrong, make sure there's no mistakes, make sure they highlight their policy positions, and they don't do anything wrong that we're not talking about tomorrow, because everybody's going to be tuned in next Monday to see the Trump-Hillary round 2 fight.
Aaron, what do you think?
I agree. I think they've gotten an additional incentive, both of them, to go hard after the top of the ticket on the other side. Hillary and Donald Trump constitute two of the most unpopular candidates and frontrunners or major party nominees in American history. So I think we're going to see a little bit of a race to the bottom here tonight. I'd be surprised if that doesn't happen. So
what about the issues, though, Aaron? Is there a specific issue that they should touch on for, their candidate to improve?
Absolutely. Well, look at it from Mike Pence's point of view. What he really needs to do tonight is attack on policy on those issues that are going to peel Democrat voters, or traditionally Democratic voters, off of the Clinton ticket in places like Pennsylvania and Ohio. For example, trade, immigration. He needs to go after voters who traditionally would go left, but are interested in Trump, but maybe turned off by some of his personal antics. Mike Pence is a good standard bearer for that kind of effort.
Aaron, or I'm sorry, Chuck, what do you think? Do you think, should he hit on the tax issue that everyone's been talking about?
There's no doubt when you run campaigns in a box like Democrats and Republicans do, they're going to go to that. But my advice to them would be, show some more emotion. People are tired of this election. What I'm seeing running campaigns across the country is no enthusiasm really on either side of this thing. So they really need to try to motivate from a very vanilla perspective, like we talked about in the beginning. Have some emotional. Tell a personal story. Try to connect to people, because we need more people participating.
Yeah, and we were just mentioning that with Pete Hegseth. When it comes to military members, both of them have sons in the military. So what should they do in terms of trying to pull over some of those veterans, Chuck?
I think they have to speak directly to where we are with our VA system, talk about veterans health care, and talk about the wars that we've been almost nonstop from the beginning, what's going on with ISIS. There's a lot of suburban voters out there that are going to sway this election in places like outside of Philadelphia and outside of Columbus, Ohio, who want to hear that. They want to make sure that we have a secure country, but also to Aaron's point, they want to hear about the trade issue as well. If they can combine national security and the trade and jobs issue, it will be a golden nugget for somebody.
And what about the independent voters, Aaron? We had one poll that showed 11% of voters are considered persuadable, and then when it comes to independent voters, Trump is leading 45% to 33%. So to pull over those independent voters that you were just mentioning, you mentioned those who may tend towards the Democratic side, but what about all of these independent voters?
Well, look, this is a problem for both folks on the stage tonight, because they both need to, as far as their bases are concerned, attack the top of the ticket on the other side. But I think that kind of thing, as Chuck alludes to, could really turn off folks in the center. For folks in the center, they need to focus on those issues that are splitting Americans right now. Again, from Pence's point of view, that's immigration, trade, things like that. Kane may be less enthusiastic about talking about issues like that, but he's going to need to make a positive case for the traditional liberal Democratic view if he wants to pull some of those voters over to Clinton's ticket.
Well, we do have to pull some of those viewers over from a baseball game that I think is happening tonight as well. Thank you both for joining us. Appreciate it, and we'll have you back in just a little bit.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, it all comes down to the voters, so we want to know, what do you want to hear from the VP candidates tonight? Send us your comments on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all social platforms, or email us the old way at foxfriendsfirst@foxnews.com, the snail mail. The time is now 27 minutes after the hour. Showdown in Virginia. The vice presidential candidates set to face off in the all-important battleground state. But what will it really take to win there? We're mapping it out with our live team coverage continues on Fox and Friends First when we come back.
It is Tuesday, October 4th, and the countdown is on to the first and only vice presidential debate.
Indiana Governor Mike Pence and Virginia Senator Tim Kaine set to square off in Farmville, Virginia.
Good morning. You are watching Fox and Friends First. I'm Heather Childers.
And I'm Clayton Morris. We have live Fox team coverage this morning for you. Let's begin with Peter Ducey, who's live at Longwood University with what we can expect tonight. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning, Clayton and Heather. And the whole point of tonight's debate is for Mike Pence and Tim Kaine to show voters that they'd be in good hands if something happened to Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton and the VP had to assume the office of the president. Now, with that said, the focus tonight, we expect, is going to be on Clinton's record and Trump's record, not on Kaine's record and Pence's record. That said, Pence says he still wants to talk about himself and his rival a little bit.
And I'll tell you, while I expect we're going to be talking about the visions and the choice the American people face at the top of the ticket, I kind of hope we get to talk about our records as well, because they're just a little bit different. I mean, when Tim Kaine was governor, he actually tried to raise taxes by $4 billion in 4 years. State of Indiana, I've signed more than $3.5 billion in tax relief.
Pence has been mock debating Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker, who was brought on as a Tim Kaine stand-in. A New York Times report says they spent last weekend at a hotel in Wisconsin going back and forth, and that Pence has also been watching old tapes of Tim Kaine to try and see what his tendencies are. As for Kaine, he said he knows it would be a waste of time to talk too much about himself. A Kaine aide tells Fox News the Democrats' approach to Pence is going to go like this, quote, "Let's see if he is willing to defend Trump." We're told that Kaine is going to get the first question tonight. It is his home turf. He's the senator from Virginia. But again, the debate is not for people in Virginia. It's for people all across the country who have not been paying attention to the campaign as much as some of us have for the last few months. And it's the only chance that Pence and Kaine have by themselves on a stage to showcase their talents before November. Back to you.
See how many people tune in. 84 million for the first presidential debate. Do you think they'll match that?
No. No way. But we'll see. I could be totally wrong. Thanks, Peter. All right. Donald Trump launching an aggressive defense in a blistering speech about his taxes.
Well, it comes just hours before the Republican nominee plans to take over Twitter during tonight's VP debate.
Fox News chief national correspondent Ed Henry is live in D.C. with Trump's new social media strategy. Hey, Ed.
Good morning, guys. Yeah, you know, Republicans have been urging Donald Trump to stay off Twitter altogether after those 3 a.m. tweets last week. Now he's talking about taking it over, pardon me, in prime time in the middle of this vice presidential debate. What he wants to do is start the hashtag Big League Truth to talk about, remember, he always uses that phrase, Big League, to talk about some of his big plans. But here he wants to set up what they're calling sort of a truth squad, get some of their supporters on the right promoting what Mike Pence is saying in this debate against Tim Kaine. What you normally see, though, is the substance of the back and forth, some of the attacks flying. That's what ends up dominating social media. We certainly saw that in the first debate between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, and frankly, they have not stopped debating, regardless of what their vice presidential nominees do tonight. The top of the ticket is still battling it out, especially over Donald Trump's taxes. Watch.
He started his business with a $14 million loan from his father. His father bailed him out. Apparently that's a pattern. You got to be bailed out when you do business with him. He then has taken advantage of every single element of our tax code.
Some of the biggest and strongest people and companies went absolutely bankrupt, which I never did, by the way. Are you proud of me? I was able to use the tax laws of this country and my business acumen to dig out of the real estate mess. You would call it a depression, when few others were able to do what I did.
Now, every 4 years, what we normally see would be the vice presidential nominees being sort of the attack dogs fighting it out. But as you can see, the top of the ticket they've been doing all of the attacking and overshadowing the number twos.
They sure have.
They get to play good cop, bad cop tonight. She'll be the good cops tonight. All right, thanks, Ed. A new bombshell in the Clinton email investigation. The FBI made side deals to destroy laptops from Clinton's top aides. Because of that, the computers can no longer be used as evidence in future legal proceedings. It was part of the immunity deals given to Clinton aides. Donald Trump immediately pounced on the news.
The investigation of Hillary Clinton was rigged. It's a shame, and I must tell you, it's one of the saddest things that many of us have ever witnessed in this country. Clinton is the ringleader of a criminal enterprise that has corrupted our government at the highest levels.
The FBI also agreed to only search laptops for documents created before January 31st, 2015, meaning that the feds gave up the opportunity to find evidence from before that date.
Really is amazing. But now some spine-chilling new details on Kim Kardashian West Paris robbery we told you about. The mother of two reportedly begging for her life as masked intruders stormed the apartment and held a gun to her head. The reality TV star says that she was bound, gagged, and thrown into a bathtub. The thieves then making off with $10 million in jewelry in a total of 6 minutes. Now, Kardashian West had been alone. Her personal security guard was out at a nightclub with her sisters. Investigators now looking into the possibility that this was maybe an inside job. There's also some speculation that this could have been a hoax to boost ratings on her TV show. As she was not injured, she is now back in New York City, and the thieves are still on the loose.
All right, the time is now 37 minutes after the hour. October surprise. Is WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange about to make good on his threat to shake up this election? A sneak peek of his big announcement coming overnight. That's coming up next.
And swaying support, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, two of the most unliked candidates in presidential history. Can their running mates turn their images around? Our political panel up next with that answer. Welcome back. Hillary Clinton's October surprise could be minutes away. This is a live look from a WikiLeaks event that's going on in Berlin, where any minute now we're told that Julian Assange is expected to make a big announcement, that's what they say, big one, on the presidential race. Kelly Wright is following the overnight developments for us and has more this morning. Good morning, Kelly.
Good morning to you as well, Heather. Julian Assange has been teasing a significant announcement for months now. Speculation is mounting over what information he is about to release. The WikiLeaks founder was supposed to make the announcement in dramatic fashion from a balcony in London. Instead, he will do it by video link in Berlin because of safety concerns. One teaser has already been dropped. WikiLeaks tweeted a report from True Pundit appearing to show Clinton calling for Assange's assassination back in 2010. She reportedly asked the State Department, "Can't we just drone this guy?" Assange told Fox and Friends back in August the Clinton campaign should be very concerned about the other information WikiLeaks has.
Since the day of leaks, there's been a campaign against WikiLeaks because they're worried about an ex-publication. And we have a perfect record over a decade of having never got it wrong with what we publish. So they can't attack the substance. They can't attack the evidence we produce.
Well, those leaks he mentioned, uncovering a conspiracy, I should say, within the DNC to stop Bernie Sanders from winning the party's nomination. The fallout caused Chairwoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz to resign. And the timing of today's announcement comes on WikiLeaks' 10th anniversary. Again, Assange is set to speak any minute now. We'll be watching and bring you any breaking developments as soon as they occur. Clayton?
All right, thanks, Kelly Wright. We'll be checking in there and shortly and see what he has to say. Anything interesting. Thanks, Kelly. All right, tonight is the night for Governor Mike Pence and Senator Tim Kaine, their first and only chance to face off on those issues. And while the pair are looking to get more name recognition, their running mates have some of the lowest likability ratings in history. Fox News polls showing that less than half of U.S. voters have favorable opinions of both Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump. So can the VP nominees do anything to change that? Here to weigh in, Vice President of Communications for Democratic Group Emily's List, Marcy Stech, and editor of Red Alert Politics, Ron Meyer. Marcy, I'll start with you. Who has a tougher job tonight and why?
Well, without a doubt, it's Mike Pence. I think at the end of the day, if you look at these likability numbers between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, they sort of cancel each other out. And what you have left are qualifications and ability to do the job. And so Mike Pence is going to have to answer for that tonight. And after a week where Donald Trump has shown that he can't hold a candle to Hillary Clinton's debate performance, that he went on to attack a woman calling her fat, that he went on to then disparage our veterans as of yesterday, and we have this bombshell story about the taxes. It's pretty clear that Mike Pence has his work cut out for him, and it's going to be a tough job.
Ron, do you disagree? Or did Donald Trump have such a bad debate performance last week that Mike Pence has to come up and clean up some of the debris?
You know, in some ways I agree, but here's one thing. I mean, this WikiLeaks story is something to follow, because if Tim Kaine has to respond to that basically live today, I mean, think about it. You have the vice presidential candidate. You're not going to be able to nail down Hillary Clinton on a response if something drops this morning, but you will be able to nail him down because he has to show up to the debate tonight here in Farmville. So Tim Kaine will have to respond if a bombshell does drop. And so that could really turn the tables potentially. And here's the thing. With both vice presidential candidates, because they're so unliked, this debate becomes a lot more important, because one of these guys could end up being president, whether it's because, you know, we have criminal investigations going on for either of the candidates, or because they're the next in line of succession. I mean, it's one of these things where this debate is way more important than I think a lot of people are giving credit for.
Ron, I think you make a good point. And often we've seen in these past vice presidential debates a lot of the American public saying, hey, why couldn't have these guys been the actual people running for president? And they get to, as Ed Henry said earlier, they get to play sort of good cop, bad cop. Ron, do you think that they're going to be playing the good cop role tonight?
Well, I think Mike Pence has to. I mean, Donald Trump was sort of very pessimistic and very broad. He's going to have to be both detail-oriented and aspirational. He has to give Republican voters a reason to turn out, an aspirational reason to turn out. Say, you know what, this is a vision we can believe in. And I think, you know, the American people are looking for a positive message in a campaign that's now filled with negative reports and mudslinging. Mike Pence does have an opportunity tonight not only to make this campaign a more positive campaign, but to set a positive image that could last for him for elections to come.
Marcy, it's a tough order for Tim Kaine tonight. Is he going to have to fall in line with Hillary Clinton, or is he able to separate himself a bit from her record? He's been walking that delicate balance when he's been out on the campaign trail. What do you expect him to do tonight?
I think Tim Kaine is going to show the American people that he is fit to be commander-in-chief should he need to step in from day one. I mean, Tim Kaine's job tonight is to continue to support the policies that Hillary Clinton has put forward, to talk about building a stronger America together, about an economy that works for everyone. And I think we're going to see him go after Mike Pence and Donald Trump on taxes. Why do they support a tax system that rewards billionaires and millionaires at the expense of middle-class families? Mike Pence has a lot to answer for tonight. We're going to see that, and I think we're going to see Tim Kaine up there strong, talking about creating opportunity for every single person, every single American, because that's exactly what the Tim Kaine, Hillary Clinton ticket would do together.
We'll see tonight whether they'll be responding to Julian Assange, the tax dump, the PTSD scandal this week. It's another week. It's another bunch of scandals. Thanks, guys. We appreciate you joining us, Ron and Marcy.
Great to be here.
Well, we've been asking what you want to hear from the VP candidates, and your comments are pouring in. Darren on Facebook says, policy details. We have the broad strokes. I hope they fill in the short strokes to clarify the details. And Robert writes, Governor Pence, if you and Trump win this election, will you stand with Trump in prosecuting Clinton? And Dan emailed asking, outside of giving small businesses a helping hand, what are their plans to get folks in America back to work? And then Lisa on Facebook wants to know, with the campaign slogan, Stronger Together, why does Hillary continue to divide? And Glenn simply says, the truth.
That would be nice.
That would be nice and refreshing.
I think we'd all agree on that. All right, the time is now 4:47 Eastern Time. The fight to finish in the battleground states. The vice presidential candidate squaring off in the crucial state of Virginia tonight.
So what would it take for each ticket to win there? We're mapping out what's at stake up next. 34 days until the election, and the polls showing a tight race in some key battleground states. The Real Clear Politics average showing Hillary Clinton leading Donald Trump in North Carolina. Look, it's a tight one, though. But Trump is pulling ahead in Tim Kaine's home state of Virginia. We should say Hillary Clinton pulling ahead by almost 10 percentage points there. So what is at stake? Here to help us break it all down is the president of Rasmussen Media Group, Scott Rasmussen. Thank you so much for joining us again this morning.
Always good to see you, Heather. You know, and as we talk about this, context is what matters. People talk about these individual states like they're individual ball games, and they miss the big picture.
Well, they're significant, though.
These states are very significant. That's right. Donald Trump, this is the map from 2012. The red states were won by Mitt Romney, the blue by Barack Obama. Mitt Romney got 206 electoral college votes. So Donald Trump needs to win all the red states, plus pick up some extra votes from the blue states. These, though, are the only states that are really competitive. You know, a state like California is going to go for the Democrats. A state like Wyoming is going to go for the Republicans. There's 13 battleground states. Trump needs to win these 3 red states and pick up some of the blue.
So Virginia, traditionally Democrat.
That's correct.
And that's where the VP debate is tonight.
That's right. We're going to be talking about that, Tim Kaine State. But we have to, again, remember, if Donald Trump wants to win, he has to win Florida, which would get him up to 235 electoral votes. He has to win Ohio. That would get him to 253. All of a sudden, he's close. And that's why these remaining blue states are so important. And today we're talking about Virginia, where the debate is, and just to its south, North Carolina. Both of these states were heavily, heavily Republican for a generation. They were just part of really what became the solid Republican South. Barack Obama changed all of that, won both these states in 2008. In 2012, they went different directions. North Carolina barely won by Mitt Romney.
Very, very close.
And Virginia, of course, still stayed with Barack Obama. So this is the context going into it. These 2 states are in the battlegrounds. They're part of the Obama coalition.
So Trump needs to win North Carolina. What does he need to do in order for that to happen?
Donald Trump, as with everything else we're talking about, needs to have that strong national message. He then needs, I say here, it's a tale of 2 cities. He needs to talk about things that are going on in the state. There's a governor's race, there's a Senate race, but there's also the violence that we had in Charlotte recently. He needs to find ways to address that and talk about that because a lot of North Carolina, it's going to be close no matter what happens. But North Carolina may be a must-win for Donald Trump. Virginia is a must-win for Hillary Clinton.
And she's in the lead right now.
She's in the lead. This is a lot like Georgia. Remember we talked a couple of weeks ago that if Donald Trump is competitive, is not winning Georgia handily, he's going to be in trouble. If Hillary Clinton is not winning Virginia handily on election night, when those first results come in, you'll know she's in trouble.
What would happen where she would fall behind in Virginia?
We would be
Anything
shocked.
in this race.
Yeah, sure. What's the WikiLeaks announcement going to say? You know, if you were betting today, you would say Virginia is very much in her camp. It would require a collapse of the national campaign. And you have to remember, one of the reasons is Washington, D.C. In the northern part of Virginia, a lot of people there work for the federal government. They work for lobbying firms who lobby the federal government. They work for government contractors. These people like a Washington insider. They want to have somebody like Hillary Clinton in charge.
Which is the opposite of the national campaign right now.
Exactly.
So next week, what are we going to hit on?
Next week, we're going to hit on Wisconsin and Michigan, which is right up in here. Always the map starts with Florida and Ohio, and then Trump needs to find something else. These will be a tough
We're
match.
learning Florida, Ohio, and then we're going to move on.
That's right.
Okay. But you're not leaving because we're going to talk to you again in
less than an hour.
The next hour. All right. Clayton?
All right, Scott, get some coffee. Thanks. All right, 55 minutes now after the hour. Gearing up for a showdown. The vice presidential candidates squaring off in Virginia tonight. So how are they getting ready? Our live team coverage continues at the top of the hour. You're watching Fox and Friends first. It is Tuesday, October 4th, and we're just hours away from the very first and only vice presidential debate.
Indiana Governor Mike Pence and Virginia Senator Tim Kaine squaring off at Longwood University in Farmville, Virginia. Good morning to you. You are watching Fox and Friends First. I'm Heather Childers.
And I'm Clayton Morris. The vice presidential candidates taking different approaches to get ready for tonight's face-off. On the eve of the debate, Tim Kaine quietly preparing at home, while Mike Pence gave a little preview of what's to come.
We're going to be talking about the visions and the choice the American people face at the top of the ticket. I kind of hope we get to talk about our records as well. While Tim Kaine was governor of Virginia, unemployment doubled. And while I've been governor of the state of Indiana, we've cut employment in half.
We have live Fox News team coverage for you this morning. Ed Henry following Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton on the campaign trail.
But we begin with Peter Ducey live in Farmville, Virginia for the VP debate. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning, Clayton, and good morning, Heather. And even though Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton aren't going to be on stage here in Farmville tonight, we are expecting them to dominate the conversation, as Mike Pence and Tim Kaine will both be tasked with pumping up their side of the ticket and also trying to explain away controversial parts of Trump or Clinton's records. A Kaine aide tells Fox News Channel that a big part of the senator's strategy tonight is to get Pence on the rope and that, quote, let's see if he is willing to defend Trump. Now, as for Trump's running mate Pence, the New York Times reports he's been watching videos of Tim Kaine the way an NFL quarterback would to try and pick up his tendencies. And Pence also spent some time this weekend doing mock debates with Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker, standing in and pretending to be Senator Kaine.
He has been doing mock debates with Governor Scott Walker, and he's been preparing with the senior staff. And I think you're going to see tomorrow a feisty Mike Pence take on the record of Hillary Clinton and hold her accountable for the failures of her policies as Secretary of State. Also, as United States Senator, talk about an unremarkable record.
From here, Pence is going to hit the road on a very precisely planned bus tour with stops in swing states Virginia, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and North Carolina. And there's a lot riding on tonight's one-on-one debate because a recent CNN ORC poll shows Kaine and Pence both have about the same favorability rating. Kaine 40, Pence 41, and this is each running mate's only shot by themselves in the spotlight to make voters like them even more.
So don't mess up. No pressure. No pressure at all.
So right. Don't mess up is right.
Although that is balanced with the Orioles-Blue Jays game tonight, too, so maybe people flipping through. All right, thanks, Peter. Well, the VPs get their chance to show who they really are to the American public tonight, and Karl Rove says they must prove why they deserve their name on the ticket just as much as the presidential nominees.
One thing will be, what do these people leave in the impression about the person at the top of the ticket who picked them? And I think both of these people are going to cause people to say, well, you know what? Clinton did a pretty good job. Trump did a pretty good job. In fact, some people may say, geez, why aren't these guys at the top of the ticket instead of the people that we got?
Well, despite neither candidate having a military background at the top of the ticket, both of the VP candidates are fathers with sons in the service.
My oldest son, a proud Marine, is deployed overseas for the second time.
My son is a United States Marine. He is... we're very proud of him.
But do either have an edge on courting military voters? Here to weigh in is Fox News contributor and military veteran Pete Hegseth. Pete, nice to see you this morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, let's dive into some of these polls this morning, Pete, and see who has an edge going into the debate. A Fox News poll. Among veterans, 47% have Trump there at the top, with 33% with Clinton. And then Gary Johnson at 13%, Jill Stein at 2%. And then active duty presidential preference, 37% picked Donald Trump. But Gary Johnson just a hair behind within that margin of error, with Gary Johnson well above Hillary Clinton. So who has the edge tonight, Pete?
Well, to the first poll, Donald Trump has a natural edge. There's a rejection in the military of, in many ways, the Clinton years, of the perception that she's a part of the failures of the Barack Obama administration, obviously, with ISIS and the Iran deal. So Donald Trump amongst veterans has that advantage. The other poll you mentioned, which is interesting, you've got Donald Trump and then Gary Johnson and then Hillary Clinton way behind, is also definitely amongst active duty members a recognition that, hey, we may not be overwhelmingly pro-Trump, but we definitely don't want Hillary Clinton. I mean, that's 75% choosing to reject Hillary Clinton. Gary Johnson, I think, is a conservative other for those that don't want Trump. I mean, a lot of the military is overwhelmingly conservative, so if you're not going for Trump, you're probably going for the libertarian. But as you can see, under 20% for the most part for Hillary Clinton.
It really is surprising. If you break it down even further, specifically looking at the Navy and the Air Force, Johnson is in the lead over Trump, like 42% there for the Navy, 37% there for the Air Force. So it really is remarkable. But I wanted to ask you about also a little bit of controversy that happened yesterday. And this is what Donald Trump had to say about PTSD, some allegations, some spin, you could say, that he was saying that veterans suffering from PTSD aren't as strong. Do you think that that will come up? And what is your response to that?
Well, it will come up. I'm sure Tim Kaine will try to bring it up. But Mike Pence, I'm sure he will, and will be smart to swat it away and say only one presidential candidate in the modern era has made veterans and VA issues a chief priority, and that's Donald Trump. So he may have inartfully said one sentence, but it wasn't disrespectful. And there's only one candidate in this race also that said the VA scandal is overstated, and that's Hillary Clinton. So if he decides to bring it up, I think Tim Kaine will be wading into friendly territory for Mike Pence to beat it back and say, hey, what's your plan to truly fix the VA, which Hillary Clinton really hasn't laid out.
And it is interesting that these governors have had different stances on foreign policy from the people at the top of the ticket. Of course, Donald Trump thinks the Iraq War was a total disaster, and George W. Bush was a total disaster as a president. Hillary Clinton supported the Iraq War, and then, of course, Tim Kaine and Mike Pence have differing views from the top of the ticket. How do you think they'll play those things tonight and square that round hole?
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting thing to watch because, Donald Trump has indicted the Iraq War, yet Mike Pence voted for it. Hillary Clinton said she won't send troops to fight ISIS, but Tim Kaine wants to leave that door open. I think both of them will point fingers at the other. So Mike Pence will say, hey, we may have both, when talking about Hillary Clinton, we may have both voted for the war, but at least I supported the surge, which proved to be successful. And Tim Kaine will try to point at Donald Trump and say, no, he really wasn't against the war in the first place. Both of these guys are members of the Foreign Affairs Committees in the House and Senate, so they're well versed. I do expect them to really point not at each other, but instead at the top of the ticket.
Yeah, it'd be very interesting to see how much they say, about their own records versus, those that are at the top of the ticket.
Pete, great to see you this morning. Thanks so much.
Thank you. See you soon.
Well, Donald Trump fighting back in another blistering speech about his taxes.
The Republican nominee saying he used federal law brilliantly and can do the same for the American people.
Fox News chief national correspondent Ed Henry live for us in D.C. with his brand new Twitter strategy. Really? A new Twitter strategy, Ed?
Heather, you're right. It's interesting because Donald Trump has been told by some of his own supporters, stay off Twitter, stop the tough tweets. It only adds, puts more gasoline on the fire in terms of the questions about his temperament. But he's talking now about starting this hashtag Big League Truth. He says the phrase big league a lot on the campaign trail, as you know. And the point is, the Trump campaign says they want to take over Twitter and social media tonight with that hashtag going after Tim Kaine, trying to promote Mike Pence. But let's face it, all of the spotlight in this campaign has been on the top of the ticket. You see it right there. It's going to be very hard for the vice presidential nominees, who normally are the attack dogs and get attention by going after the other side in presidential campaigns. Instead, it's been all about the top of the ticket, getting nasty, particularly about Trump's taxes. Watch.
I have legally used the tax laws to my benefit and to the benefit of my company, my investors, and my employees. I mean, honestly, I have brilliantly used those laws.
That just shows, number one, he is the poster boy for the same rigged system that he would make even worse. Just think about it. He paid zero at least for about 20 years. What's he want us to do? Pay him to lose money?
Now, neither of these candidates ceding the spotlight either for their vice presidential nominees. Michelle Obama on the trail for Clinton, North Carolina. You see Bill Clinton, Ohio, Bernie Sanders, Minnesota, Elizabeth Warren in Nevada, Mark Cuban in California, Chelsea Clinton joining her mother in Pennsylvania. The Democrats really see Pennsylvania as a firewall for them, that even if Donald Trump wins some of these battlegrounds that he's been surging in recent days, if he doesn't flip Pennsylvania to the Republican column, it's going to be difficult for him to win. Guys, back to you.
Mark Cuban in California, big battleground state, Ed. Thanks, Ed.
Not at all, yeah. It's a celebrity.
Thanks, Ed.
Well, the time now is about 9 minutes after the top of the hour. And bracing for impact, a deadly hurricane on the move as Monster Matthew pounds the Caribbean. Janice Dean is tracking a brand new warning you need to hear that was just issued for the U.S.
And they may be the second name on the ticket, but the vice presidential candidates of the past have certainly left their mark.
Served with Jack Kennedy. I knew Jack Kennedy. Jack Kennedy was a friend of mine. Senator, you're no Jack Kennedy.
Ken, this year, the VP nominees, they're facing a whole new problem. Do you even know who Tim Kaine and Mike Pence are? Would you be able to pick them up if you saw them on the street? Stay with us. Welcome back. Julian Assange is now speaking from his video feed from London at a WikiLeaks event in Berlin, where any minute now he's expected to make a big announcement on the presidential race and a potential October surprise for Hillary Clinton. We are monitoring it, and we'll bring you the announcement as soon as we hear it from Berlin. Heather?
But in the meantime, some news we do need to tell you about. Hurricane Matthew gaining momentum overnight as the Category 4 storm claims 3 lives in its deadly tear across the Caribbean. You can see the flooding and the wind. It is bearing down on Haiti, dumping as many as 40 inches of rain on a region that is still reeling from that devastating earthquake of 2010. Matthew also making its way out of Jamaica on a collision course with Cuba. That is where 700 American families were evacuated from the U.S. naval base at Guantanamo Bay, and they were rushed to safety in Florida. And some incredible images show the deadly storm. This is from space as it continues to gain momentum over the Atlantic, setting its sights on the U.S. coastline. The governors of Florida and North Carolina already declaring states of emergency. Senior meteorologist Janice Dean is tracking the storm for us and has the very latest. Good morning, Janice.
Good morning, Heather. And if you're just waking up with us, if you live anywhere from Florida to Maine, you need to be paying close attention to this storm because it looks like we could have direct impacts from Matthew later this week and into the weekend. But look at this storm now, still a Category 4. It is actually strengthening as it makes its catastrophic impact on Haiti. The worst side of this storm, the northeast quadrant, is making landfall across the peninsula of Haiti with upwards of 30 inches, perhaps 40 inches of rainfall. So this is going to be a life-threatening catastrophic event that is unfolding in Haiti. And I just want to show you the sea surface temperatures. So yes, a lot of warm water, the fuel that this storm needs to strengthen. And if we don't have a lot of land interaction, that means not a lot of chances for this storm to weaken. And that means a stronger storm as it makes its way into the Bahamas. So we think eastern Cuba still needs to monitor this. And then the Bahamas. We still think a major hurricane into the Bahamas by Wednesday. Then what happens? This is a brand new track. And again, if you live across the East Coast from Miami to Maine, be prepared because we are potentially dealing with a very close hug of the coast or a landfall later this week and into the weekend. So this track continuously moving westward within each advisory. This has changed drastically from when we were talking yesterday. And the tropical models are now coming into a good agreement, moving into the Bahamas again as a major hurricane and maintaining that major hurricane strength as it hugs the coastline or possibly makes a landfall. And we can't rule out impacts across the Northeast, including New England. Here's one of the GFS models, one of our reliable American forecast models that brings this storm very close to Florida as a major hurricane on Friday and then hugging the coastline, maybe even a landfall here across the Carolinas and then up towards the Northeast and New England. So guys, I cannot stress this enough. This could be one of the biggest storms we've had in a decade affecting the East Coast. Please, please be prepared and keep advised of all of the latest weather warnings.
From Florida all the way to Maine. Yep. Huge.
And think about Superstorm Sandy in 2012 during the presidential campaign. What that did to the presidential campaign.
This is going to be a topic for the debates, I think, tonight. What kind of preparation are we dealing with here?
Yeah. All right, Janice, thanks so much for that.
Okay.
Well, the time is now 16 minutes after the top of the hour, and they have been overshadowed by scandals and big personalities. But tonight, the VP nominees get to make their cases to the American people.
So what do the voters need to hear tonight? Our political panel live from Farmville, Virginia, with the answers coming up.